Hey everyone, can you hear me? That's my picture. Can you hear me well? Please tell me in the chat if you can hear me and you can listen to me well. If you can see me well as well, if there's any delay, because I can still change here. All good? So let's start sharing here. So welcome everybody. My name is Palombini. I'm a psychologist, executive coach, specialized in tech leadership. And I'm here on this third webinar series about of the PentaBAR, which is a partnership I made with Pentalog to provide tech leaders with a 360-degree approach to leadership development. Today, we are going to talk about the C-suite burnout. And before I get into the details, I just want to give you some interaction rules. So if you have any questions, and I hope you do, please put them in the Q&A session. I will make some questions, some reflections along the way, and you can put it in the chat, and I'll try to check them every once in a while, although I can't keep checking them all the time. So I just want for you to tell me, where are you speaking from? Where are you from now? I would love to know who is here and where are you speaking from. So this, as I was speaking, this session is going to be about C-suite burnout. So these webinars were aiming for the C-suite, for C-level leadership, but it's going to be good for any levels of leadership. And also if you are going through burnout and you know someone that might be going through burnout. So we're going to talk about how to recognize it, how to recover from it, and also the C-suite and the C-level responsibility, the leadership responsibility to prevent burnout in the workplace. So let's dig in. You're here today probably because you are witnessing reduced productivity and quality of work, absenteeism, high turnover, and it's probably hard for you to deal with your own feelings or with other people's feelings. That's not very uncommon. As a matter of fact, tech leaders usually have a hard time dealing with feelings. And I want to bring you knowledge and leadership strategies to prevent, cope, and recover from burnout. Once you learn these strategies, you will get back that engagement, the resilience, and optimistic view, and also be proud of yourself as a leader to be able to promote this in the workplace. I'm using my psychological perspective, some real cases about executives that I coach and that has been going through burnout or had been in the past gone through burnout. And I brought you some research, very recent research about this that I think you're going to like as well. And as a result, I hope I can make you change your mindset regarding burnout, regarding productivity, and help you improve both your employees and your own well-being. So I always like to start with self-assessment. For those who had been in my previous webinars, I always start with that because I think that that's the starting point from any kind of change of mindset and sustainable behavior change. I want you to keep in mind that these questions can be asked about yourself or about anyone that you're trying to help, that is struggling with stress right now. So for the ones that are listening to this as a podcast, I'm going to read the sentences. Am I exhausted and feeling stressed? Am I beginning to get sour on the job and disliked it, like that Sunday evening feeling? How do I feel about how well I'm doing the job? How do I assess the quality of my work? And how long have I been feeling like this? This last question about how long you've been feeling like this, it's important for you to understand if this is a circumstantial thing or that's something that can be more related to your personality or other aspects of your life. So keep these questions in mind and take notes. Try to picture someone who's struggling with that. If you are a leader, picture someone who's struggling with that and try to answer these questions. How much do you know about this person's well-being now? The first data I want to bring to you is from Deloitte's Insight. I really recommend you to look this up. It's the C-suite's role in well-being. It's a research that Deloitte made and published in July 2022, so it's very recent. And try to bring some knowledge to C-suite about burnout and their role in preventing it. So the first thing I want to address is this data, because 68% of employees and 81% of C-suite executives say that improving their well-being is more important than advancing their career. I think that this alone gives you a measure of how much you should be investing your resources, your time, your attention in well-being now and in burnout prevention. Another significant data is how much C-suite underestimate employees struggling with their well-being. There's a discrepancy here in this chart that you can see between C-suite's perception of employee well-being and how employees are self-reporting about their well-being. If you check here on the mental well-being part, 59% of employees report they have excellent or good mental health, while 84% of C-suites think that the employees' mental health are excellent or good. So there is a huge discrepancy. How much do you actually know about your employees' mental health? Also, 70% of C-suite executives are seriously considering quitting for a job that better supports their well-being. This is, it's huge. Have you been considering quitting a job? Because if you are in a C-suite level, or if you're almost there, and if you have influence, you have the power to change this. And it's important that you understand how much you can do. This graphic here is also very interesting. It says that around 1 out of 3 employees and executives are constantly struggling with fatigue and poor mental health. So you see, most of these, all of these data here, all of these KPIs here are too high. These rates are too high. It shouldn't be acceptable to have 36% of executives feeling exhausted and 43% of employees feeling exhausted. And while employees feel more exhausted and stressed than the C-level executives, the C-level executives feel more overwhelmed, lonely, and depressed than the employees. But how can we actually change the scenario? Let's start with understanding what burnout is, what it actually is. This definition by the World Health Organization might come as a surprise for most of you, because burnout used to be considered this state of fatigue that you reach within any area of your life. But since 2019, the World Health Organization decided to define it as a workplace condition. So it defines as burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. Burnout refers specifically to phenomena in the occupational context and should not be applied to describe experiences in other areas of life. This is very significant. It's not a detail. It's very important. And why is it very important? Because it's not defined as a medical condition. So the solutions won't be found in the individual level. It will be found in the organizational level. And once you know that, you need to change your mindset and understand that stress is a response to workplace stressors that affects your workforce at scale, not just individuals. It's also not a weakness. It's not a lack of effort, of resilience. So if you're going through this, you might have been feeling guilty for not being able to deliver what you wanted to deliver. But if these stressors, these workplace stressors are not removed, then the situation won't improve. And it's not your fault. It's because these stressors are still present. So it can be mitigated in individual level. So there's some things you can do to reduce the stress level and cope with it, but it can only be solved at the organizational level. If you are a leader listening to this, what I want you to ask yourself is, what cultural issues are contributing to burnout? So I'm going to give you an example. You know, when you push people hard because you have a deadline coming, and you demand more of those people, and they give you that effort, and at the end you meet the deadline, the quality of work was not compromised, and the team is proud, but that came at a cost. So imagine as if your energy levels were like a battery. So you had your battery in a normal level, and then this period drained your energy. But when the deadline is met, instead of going back to the normal speed of things, you decide to keep pushing harder because it worked. But those people, they don't have that energy level filled anymore. They're starting these new challenges with depleted energy levels, which of course will contribute to burnout. Another thing for reflection, how much is within your hands to change the situation? As I mentioned before, if you understand that burnout is a workplace condition, you as a C-level leader, you have a lot of power to change that and to reduce stress. And individuals, we have more power to cope than actually to prevent. They can prevent, like joining company that have stressful environments, for instance, but there's nothing they can do to change the reality of the company. So these are the questions I want you to ask yourself. How much can you do in your current position to prevent burnout in the workplace? How does your stress impact your team and the company culture? You are, as a leader, a role model. So if you don't allow yourself rest, how will the people that look up to you do that? And what's within your reach to recover or help someone to recover from burnout? This, I think everyone can ask yourself, because there is much you can do for your colleagues as well. And I'm going to show you a little ahead, but what have you been doing? Have you been intentional with this? To go deeper into this concept, I'm going to bring Dr. Malzek research. She has written many books about burnout. She's an authority. And she says that burnout really tells you more about what's going on in the workplace than what's going on in the individual. So keep that in mind, because I'm going to bring the 6 core reasons for burnout according to Dr. Malzek research. So these are the core roots for burnout, the 6 core roots for burnout. So I'm going to go through them one by one. So first of all, I'm going to check here the chat if you have something. That's cute. I don't know how to say the name of this place. Ayrshire. Where is this Ayrshire? I don't know where is it from. Is it in the UK? So I'm speaking from Lisbon. I forgot to tell you, I'm speaking from Lisbon. Okay, so don't forget to put the questions in the Q&A session, okay? I'm going to have some water before we go deep into this. Okay, for the 6 core, so these are 6 core roots for burnout according to Christina Maslach. The first one is unsustainable workload. Is the do more with less demand. It's like I mentioned before, and I'm going to give you another example of how this actually happens in the IT sector. Suppose you downsize for a circumstantial problem. Maybe you lost part of the funding for that specific project. Maybe you had a person who had to leave the team, so you downsized. And you met the goal even so. So you don't go back to the previous number of people because it worked. So it's like every time do more with what you can, like sacrifice a little bit, this mentality of sacrificing. actually is a core root to burnout. The second core root to burnout is perceived lack of control, when the person thinks that they have little say in what happens to them. For instance, you can feel that if you have no say in the flexibility in the work arrangement, if you have no say in the time that you take vacation, in the project choices, in your career choices, not just because maybe you don't have they don't let you choose, but because the company didn't give you many options to grow. The third one is insufficient rewards for effort. So the person doesn't feel valued or recognized. Going back to that downsizing example, you asked for their effort, and then you don't celebrate it, you don't recognize it, because if you go back to the way things were, you set this new normal. Instead of recognizing them for the efforts, it's like you're telling them also, so you could have been doing all of that effort since the beginning, and you didn't because you're lazy. So recognize, understanding that you were recognized once people asked you to go that extra mile is essential to have this feeling of fulfillment in your engagement with your work. The fourth one is very common among people who had just been promoted, people from tech jobs, developers, architects, and that became leaders. Is a mismatched values and skills with roles and responsibilities. So you promote the person, that technical person, that expert, to a leadership position because that was the only way that he could grow. You don't have a career in a Y-shaped career in your company, and he accepted that because he saw it as a reward for his efforts. But then it doesn't match what he really wants for his life. It doesn't match the skills that he has. So that also brings a sense of lack of purpose, of the person questioning. They don't know why they're doing that, questioning the reason, the why they're doing that. The sixth one that Dr. Maslach points out is the lack of fairness. The workload and opportunities are not equitable. Well, according to my executive coaching clients, especially tech leaders, they are fair, and I do believe them. They're fair because they usually tell me they're very concerned about this, but they also deal with these kinds of complaints. And the problem is communication. Then if your problem is communication, you should go to the first PentaBAR webinar I gave only about strategic communication. So you might be not communicating enough. It's not enough to be fair. You have to show how fair you are. And that's not bragging. That's just showing people the fairness, the opportunities, making it clear, being transparent. And the last core root for burnout is a lack of supportive community. This is actually a very common core root among executives in the C-suite. The clients my clients that had complained about this, they usually say they feel like they don't belong in the C-suite, like they don't speak the same language, or he has a very hard time explaining why an innovation is necessary, or why they should avoid some kind of technology or some kind of client request. They feel very lonely and they feel vulnerable. And usually tech people don't like to feel vulnerable, and they usually don't say it and they don't show it. So if you're feeling like that, you're not alone. Be aware that most of my clients complain about that. And I'm going to show you a way to go over that as well. Okay, so these are the 6 core roots of burnout. These go to the core. Okay, these are going to solve the issue. If you attack these issues, you're actually going to prevent the likelihood of burnout happening in your company. But there are some individual factors that can contribute to burnout. I just want to stress here that we cannot expect the individual to take responsibility for their burnout. But if this is very frequent in your life, maybe you have a tendency to stress, and that's something that you should also be aware of. These individual factors are better explained. I went through these in the time management webinar. So if you identify with this, go there and go deeper. But the superhuman fantasy can be very harmful for you. It's like the only limit that you can feel, the only alert that you've gone too far is your body, is when you are already depleted of energy. And that's very harmful. It will demand for you to stay away a longer period, and that's not even strategic. So accept the fact that you're human and that you need rest. It's very important. High achievers are also more likely to burn out than other professionals. And tech leaders usually, they were very high achievers as developers. And they have this image of themselves like they've always handled it well. But once you become a leader, you have added responsibility. And it's not fair to this new chapter of your life to demand the same level of excellence that you had as a developer. You are in a learning curve. And what makes it worse is when you start comparing yourself with other people. The other day, a client of mine told me that we were talking about how he had to say more no to people and say, okay, I cannot take this project unless I give this to someone else, and try to negotiate that. And he asked me, how could he do that if all the other leaders in his level were always saying yes to the CEO? And I asked him, but how do you know that? How do you know that they are always saying yes? You only know what they want you to see. It's what the behavior they express in front of you during the leadership meetings. But do you know what's going on in the one-on-one meetings they have? How they have been negotiating? So don't compare yourself, because you don't know in what stage of the learning curve that person is. And also you don't know what's going on, actually. You have this assumption that all that you see is what there is. But it's usually not like that. People don't know a lot of things about you, I'm sure. If you're here and you're feeling burnout, how many people actually know that you're feeling like this? They're just struggling with this. I guess not many people. So if you are a leader and you want to take care of your employees as well, you have to understand that they might be also going through these things, these comparisons as well. But the C-level has other added stressors. When you get to the C-level, you have a weight of responsibilities. The weight is higher. So although you are a person like anyone else, and those core roots also apply to leadership positions, to C-level, CEOs, CTOs, all the C positions, you are a person, and that those core roots, they apply. But these are specific stressors that you might have not signed up for them, and now we are facing them. So the weight of responsibilities, having many stakeholders, can really be something that divide your attention. So as an expert, you were used to focusing. So you focus on one thing at a time, and you multitask some things. In your attention, where you put your attention is where you put your energy. So if you have many stakeholders, you're still learning how to deal with all of them. It can be really exhausting. But you will actually have to learn how much attention you have to give to each of these stakeholders until it becomes something natural to you. The problem becoming stuck in the problem solver identity will bring this overload, because if you are identified with this problem solver persona, and you still think you have to perform like that as a leader, you have all these stakeholder expectations and demands, and plus this added responsibility of keeping this image. If you are in this position, it's also important to understand if this was thrown upon you. So if this is an expectation of the other C-level executives that you perform as the expert and also as a leader, or if this is something that you inflict upon yourself because it's hard for you to delegate, for instance. Well, loneliness, I mentioned before, in the leadership position is very common. So this is a stressor by itself, and dealing with people's feelings and health. Unfortunately, my clients, they usually think that this is the hardest part of their job, especially tech leaders. They usually don't like it and they avoid it. And so if you avoid talking about people's feelings, about how their physical conditions are, about personal things, then it's going to be very hard for you to prevent. That's your role. Accepting that dealing with people and people have feelings is something important for every leader. So the sooner you accept that and embrace that, the better. So now that we know what burnout is and what its causes, we can check how to recognize it. We can check some of the signs. So do you have any questions so far regarding the concept of burnout, how to understand that this is a workplace condition? So put it in the Q&A, and I'm going to check that at the end of the presentation. So moving on to the signs. How many of these signs can you identify? Speaking about prevention, we're speaking about observation. I'm here talking about how you can recognize these signs in yourself and also in the people that are closer to you. Not all signs must be there to characterize burnout, okay? So the World Health Organization highlights exhaustion, cynicism, and reduced productivity as signs of burnout. But they can be all present, some of them present, and it also depends on the intensity of this. But there are other signs, since how you feel, how you react to stress is very individual. You can present other kinds of other signs as well. So self-doubt usually comes from this reduced productivity. Since you are too tired, too exhausted, that can end up reducing your productivity. Start doubting yourself, which leads to a lot of negativity. And doom, this feeling that nothing will ever get better. So even in tech leaders, I can see that the self-doubt can become a huge problem if it turns to imposter syndrome. And profiles, like technical profiles with personalities, they have a tendency to self-doubt and to hide this, not communicate this. So when they hide this, they disconnect. So they withdraw from people, which it's worse for burnout. They lose motivation. They might become more irritable, and you know, this can spill in your personal life as well. And all of these can be in different levels for everyone. So how can you assess that? It's just by asking yourself, in this individual level, you have to ask the same questions I asked you at the beginning of this webinar. Am I exhausted and feeling stressed? Am I beginning to get sour on the job or dislike it? How do I feel about how I'm doing? And how long have I been feeling like this? So if you are a leader, you can speak to the leadership, to the head of HR, and talk about running surveys to understand the level of stress in the company as a whole, and provide you with some information, some insights, because these surveys, they tend to be anonymous. When we're talking about health issues, there's still a lot of prejudice about mental health. And still a lot of this notion, as I mentioned before, that this is a problem, an individual problem, a weakness, a skill that you have, that if you train enough, if you develop enough, it will solve the problem. And anonymous survey will provide you with honest feedback about this. So it's important to have this partnership, but at the individual level, you can ask this and include these questions in your routine with your employees, on one-on-one meetings, or also on group meetings. Introduce the health issue. Okay, so now that you know what the signs are and how you can recognize it, we have to talk about what you can do about it. So there are two strategies that you can use to help people deal with burnout, handle burnout. There are coping and preventing strategies. So there are differences between coping and preventing. I'm going to give you an example. Take a vacation is coping. So you're coping with this, because once you return, the job stays the same. So for some people, it's even very hard to take vacation because they know the workload will be worse. So if you are a leader and you're just telling the person to stay home and rest and not giving them assurance that someone else is handling their job or that she's not going to have this overload of work when this person returns, then are you actually working on the root cause? And to prevent, what we want is to actually change the likelihood of burnout in the workplace. So we have to attack stressors. When you are this is the main differences between preventing and coping. So when you prevent, you start fixing stressful workplace habits and policies. You go back to that 6 core reasons I mentioned before, and you're going to work to solve that problems on a scale, trying to find the sustainability in these actions. And you're going to have to show to your company that you're taking accountability for the workplace health. And also by taking action, direct action as a leader. But coping strategies, they're not, although they don't go to the root causes, they're very effective and could be used in parallel while these preventive measures are being thought and still haven't been implemented. So you can use coping strategies for circumstantial stressors. So for instance, you have a merge with another company, and this is a huge stressor, but you know it's going to be over. One, the processes are set, things will get back to normal and back to the normal speed. But then you can give your employees some coping strategies so they can work on their stressors in the individual level. But what you have to be careful is when you provide, you suggest coping strategies, you're putting the responsibility on the individual, but that's sometimes what's within your reach to do. So if you are in a situation like that, maybe that's all that's within your reach to do now. But although you see the research, this Deloitte research has shown us that people are very aware of the importance of burnout prevention in the workplace, less than 6 out of 10 employees say their company embeds well-being into the workplace culture. So what do I mean by embed? That's what I'm going to see now. It's what are the actions that are embedded in the culture, the part of the culture. It's not something apart. It's not sending someone to a meditation camp. It's like embedding that in the practice, in the policy, in the mindset about health, about healthcare. This is a very interesting data. So workers have high expectation, but leaders are moving quickly enough. What I want to highlight some of these topics here. So what do employees expect the most? According to this research, they expect that the leaders adopt new standards that support social determinants of health. So it's a different way of looking at health. Because workers are really fed up with outdated norms, like 9-to-5 schedule, the expectation that they should be always on, this productivity mindset of overworking and measuring your work by the hours that you stay at working per week. And they want substantial policies to improve mental health in the workplace. The second thing is focus on whole person health of employees, and C-level executives actually seem to be going after this, like offering this flexible working hours, hearing more the employees regarding the flexibility of the work, understanding that the personal lives and their professional life are not that separated. Especially working from home, since the working from home became a very common, a new normal, then it blurred these limits between personal and professional life. What C-suite executives don't do, and that employees really expect, is challenge what's considered to be normal. And guys, if you are in a C-level position, you actually have the power to do this. You have the power to decide, to challenge these notions of productivity, to challenge this notion of what normal Fordian notions of work. So it's up to you to reimagine a work that's healthier for everyone, including yourselves, because as we've seen, it's burning you out as well. And the root causes are the same. So they all mention, they mention as well, share public health information with employees. This is very interesting. When they say public health here, I thought they were mentioning something about the government indicators, but that's not about this. It's about holding dialogues. It's like putting health, mental health into the conversation, not that something apart from the conversation. As we've seen before, they expect these policies to be embedded in the routine. So it's, for instance, when you're going to share the workload, do you ask your employees how much they can stand now, how their energy levels are, how much motivated they are to take the project? Or do you just divide, taking into consideration how much tasks they have at hand? Also, another thing executives are not doing and employees expect is shape the future of health in coalition with others. So it's for help. So you don't have to be experts in health and workplace health, but you can partner with outside companies to help you provide this new culture, to change the culture of the company. I put this here. I put this Deloitte paper here, report, the health savvy CEO, to remind you to go there, because they have a very good specific table of what has already been done regarding to burnout prevention. And it really completes this. As I don't have time to go in very details through everything, I really advise you to download and take a look at it. Because the first step is becoming health savvy. So this is the step that you are already taking. So if you are here, if you are participating here, all the 47 participants now, and people who will watch this asynchronously, are looking for knowledge, are looking to become health savvy. So if you want to become health savvy, you should define your ambition as a leader, regarding health. What do you want to be? What indicator? What is within your mission to provide a well-being for your company and your employees? And have a learning strategy. It's something new. So most leaders think that this is also something, it's too much for them. But if you embrace leadership as guiding people, as most of your time is going to be spending dealing with people, then you have to understand how much important it is to have a learning curve for this, to understand that you still have a lot to learn. The second step will be listen to your employees to assess causes and take responsibility. Because when don't listen if you're not going to do anything about it later. So first you have to understand, you have to take responsibility. When you approach these employees to ask about their working conditions, about their health, their mental health, you have at the same time to acknowledge to everyone that burnout is a workplace condition and you're taking responsibility. The third step would be examine and adjust your systems. Okay, you are a C-level. You have the power to adjust the workload assignment and to change performance reviews. Performance reviews is something that I wanted you to focus on. The other day, client of mine, let's call him Matt, he wanted to increase collaboration among 2 units of his team in 2 different countries. and they were competing with each other, and they want them to collaborate. And when I asked them about if there was any indicator on the performance review regarding collaboration or maybe joint indicators, KPIs for some kind of result, they said, no, there was nothing. All the KPIs, all the measures, the performance measures they were assessing was related to individual contribution. So if you don't change your performance reviews to include healthcare, attention to healthcare in your leadership KPIs, attention to people, for instance, you can even include absenteeism indicators, then you're not going to achieve results. People will go after what you're measuring. They will put their efforts into your expectations. And how do they know what your expectations are? They know it by the KPIs, by how you are assessing their performance. Job descriptions reviews might be very interesting strategy always to for prevention. Why? Because you're going to attack that root cause of mismatch between the role and the skills and the values of that person. So if you feel that the person is having this mismatch, maybe go over the job description, try to review, try to find the mission of that job, the purpose, not only the tasks. Job descriptions should not be about the tasks. They should be about the purpose people are doing that. They should start with the purpose, start with this mission statement, and then we cascaded it down into the task level. The fourth step was provide psychological safety culture. So be transparent, speak about, give people the freedom to speak, but start small. Once you get to step 5 and you want to start doing all this, don't try implementing a lot of things as a company, as a policy. Go slow. So just to show you how much being tech savvy is important. So 77% of employees and 94% of C-suite agree this is very important. And this is what I'm going to advise you to do. So the first thing you should do is start leadership talks. And what do I mean by this? Is having a dedicated space to talk about mental health issues, to talk about leadership. Maybe every quarterly or at least once a month, get together with the other leaders and start designing a leadership ambition around health. Try to bring knowledge about mental health. It could be that Deloitte report. It could be part of this webinar for you to discuss the real cases. So this strategy will also work to fight this leadership loneliness that's specific to the C-level, that it's very high on the C-level. And you will bring the solutions together once you have listened to your employees' real needs. So each leader could bring this listening, these needs, employees' needs to this leadership talk. So I'm just going to run over this very fast because we have not a lot of time. But this just show you executive training program might be what executives miss the most to become more health savvy. And I would like to know your opinion. Do you agree with this? Do you think that executive training program focused on health matters is something that could be more frequent in companies? And what topics would you like to go deeper? Let me check here. Okay. So in that Deloitte paper about health savvy leaders, they mentioned some leadership attitudes, and I like it to highlight here. These two first ones that talk about giving employees time off or giving breaks during the day, they are coping strategies. Maybe that's perfect if you're going through something very hot right now. Things are crazy right now, but it's going to end. It's a period, and you encourage them to do this. But these three last ones are actually going to the core roots, like sending out communications, encouraging employees to take time off. These communications, they are widespread, and it can be used as a reassurance. Setting a better example by doing this yourself, because it's useless if you say to people to take time off and you don't. You're going to be the standard. Banning after hours email do it now. You should be doing this now. And it actually goes to a core root of changing culture of working over hours, of overworking. But there are some coping strategies that you can use if you are already feeling these burnout symptoms. And the most important ones are here. So it can work. There are several. You can petting your pet, for instance, spending time with your pet is one of them that I didn't put here. And you have to find your own. So if you're going through this, you can try to communicate your overload to your employers if you haven't done that already. You can also ask for help, professional help, like having someone to talk it over with might be very important. Don't disconnect people. Try to go more to the office and connect in a personal level. Laugh more. You can use a stand-up comedy, 5 minutes, 10 minutes stand-up comedy in between meetings, and bring some laughter into your life. It moves a lot of hormones in your body, and it will create a relief sensation. Also, disconnect when off the clock, pretty obvious. Meditate. I really advise you, if you haven't meditated, it's proven to be effective. I've been meditating since I was 16 years old, and it's actually what works for me. So try that. But if you don't like meditating, maybe try mindfulness. But my tip for mindfulness, which is being here now, trying to do something, being in the moment, not thinking of anything else. My tip is try with one thing. It could be when you're walking your dog, or it could be when you're taking a shower, washing the dishes, doing some house chores, but decide on only one thing, because this is hard at the beginning and it should be a habit. So decide on one thing and try it for 21 days and see how that works. But Carol, okay, I know how to cope, but that's not working. I'm feeling exhausted. I'm burnt out already. So how can I recover from this burnout? The first thing I want to ask you is, do you feel guilty when you take time off? If you take time off feeling guilty, you will tend to not disconnect, and it will ruin your recovery time, because recover is about rest. That's not other way around it. You have to rest. But how long is enough? Well, it's very individual, and it will definitely depend on how much you are exhausted and how depleted are your energies. If you are trying to just recover from a period of stress, it's something. From burnout, it's usually longer periods. It's until you feel replenished, until you feel positive again about going back to work. And that's hardly going to happen if you think the workload is going to increase while you're absent. So what can you avoid and seek while you are in this recovery moment? So avoid productive vacations, like I'm going to do a lot of things. No, you have to rest. Traveling to new places might be also tricky, because when you are in a new setting, your whole body will have to adapt, not only like to new viruses, but to you will demand more of all your 5 senses, your smell, your eyesight, and that can be stressing to your body. There are people that usually, I think it's Mark Zuckerberg, he only wears like black t-shirts, not to make these small decisions that are tiring. Traveling to new places, to places that you don't know, sightseeing, it's not restful. Taking courses, turning wellness into one more demand, like I'm going to turn into a vegan now during my burnout period, resting recovery period. Not a good idea. I'll run a marathon. Making important decisions, because until you are recovered, it's not a good period to make important decisions, and decisions will have a weight on your mental health. What tires us are not just tasks. The responsibility tires us. The decision making is very tiring and exhausting. Checking in with work, of course. Seek what you should seek. You should seek healthy habits, maybe 1 or 2. Maybe just like reducing the amount of junk food you eat. Search for inner peace. I included here this picture of a person reading because it's the way I find inner peace when I'm reading. It's very soothing, very calm, and connects from the screens. It works for me. Positive people, surround yourself by positive people, because if you are burned out, you're a little cynical now, you are a little negative now with a pessimistic point of view. Rest your body, sleep. You cannot recover if you don't sleep. So you have a sleeping problem, maybe this is the time to take care of yourself and seek medical help. And give enough time for yourself to feel replenished. The important thing is that you feel your energy back. Well, guys, I think this is it. I hope you like it. I'm going to the Q&A now. Let me see. I think we have some things on the chat. Okay, so I have some things on the Q&A. Okay. First question, do you think there is a way to think of a scale or steps and signals to identify in yourself? Tristan, I've actually looked this up, and it's not, because it's very, very personal. What you want is something external to you to tell you how you feel. And what I want you to seek is this self-awareness in order for you to be able to get your own scale. So what I think it's possible, and what I do with my clients, it's create your own scale. For instance, understanding your triggers. One client of mine was very rude, sometimes lashed out, and we understand what his triggers were. And once he understood that, he could prevent those triggers from happening. And he created his own scale of understanding how much stressed he was. So trying to seek that for yourself is good. But if you follow those signs that I show you, you will probably can create a scale of intensity, with the lowest intensity being cool. I'm cool with it. And the highest intensity is I'm crying. I can't stand this anymore. So Andy asked how to differentiate between issues caused by external influence, example, world affairs, and stress caused by work. Actually, Andy, this is a very important question. Depression, for instance, can be confused because some of the signs are similar to burnout. So if you think you might be experiencing depression, look for professional help, okay? No one can tell you you're depressed unless you're talking to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But one thing that will help you think about this is ask yourself, if I remove my work, will my life improve? If you can picture that and, okay, it will improve a lot, then it's a burnout thing. Another issue that you can ask is everybody feeling like this, or it's just me? If it's the case of an employee, you should assess, the only thing you can do as a leader is improve the workplace conditions. So work to address the conditions of the workplace, not that individual specifically. What you can do to individuals specifically is offer them coping strategies. I hope I answered your work, but really look for a professional help. How does one overcome the guilt of taking time off? And Leandro, this is an amazing question. On the second webinar of this series, I addressed time management issues. And this guilt is very common among tech leaders. You have these two issues, these beliefs that can, if you break them, it can remove or reduce your guilt. First of all is acknowledging that you feel guilty for taking time off. So what is that connected to? Why shouldn't you be the person allowed time off? Because you're more important than someone? Because you're stronger than everyone else? Or why should everyone else have time off but you? Or do you think that they should be guilty as well? When I ask you this, sometimes people laugh because it seems so obvious that you are like everyone else and that you need rest just as the next guy. But the thing is that we are more demanding with ourselves than we are with anyone else. In this case, think as your best friend. Put yourself outside as an observer of yourself. Take the scientific approach to yourself to try to hack your own behavior and understand the root causes of your guilty. Maybe it has something to do with the way your parents always worked. I had a client that his father, he worked a lot. He worked really hard and he had that image and he loved his father. He wanted to be like his father. And so he thought that this was something good. But as a matter of fact, I'm sure his father wanted him to have a healthy, balanced life, but he couldn't. So go to the second, I think the second webinar, Alandu, will clarify a lot of these questions for you. Catalina asked, we usually have planned efforts, but sometimes some of the colleagues push the effort and then you also feel the pressure to do it. How do we avoid taking too much on our plate? Catalina is always, I also addressed that on the second webinar, but to answer your question, you have to learn to say no. And that can be hard because I know tech people don't like conflict and they don't like to go against the group. You have to be able, have to have a safe space in your company to feel, I can't do it. It's not going to be enough. I have to change priorities here. So as I mentioned before, you don't know what these people have been negotiating on one-on-one meetings with the leader. Go to your leader, speak with them about your need, about what's going on with you, and maybe the task, because you're taking the assumption that all these colleagues of yours have exactly the same amount of responsibilities, efforts, and complexity of tasks as yours. And usually this is hardly the case. So you don't compare yourself with them, because if you burn out, you're going to be the worst, the person most harmed by that. And you're going to harm the whole team. So you can only be responsible for the way you feel. And maybe if you have the courage to speak up and go there and say, this is too much, I cannot handle, maybe they will also feel free to do that. But as I've been saying during this webinar, it's the leadership responsibilities, the company responsibility to create a space where you will feel comfortable to say that you're not, that you can handle it, that's not healthy to go on with those demands. Let's check the chat. Here there are two questions. Okay, I have a little feeling that I failed after, I had a feeling that I failed after my burn up, that no other people can relate to my feeling and can't talk about. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Mario. You know, what I want to tell you is you're not alone. If you look, it will be very good for you to check this Deloitte research, because you're not feeling alone. You will feel that most people are feeling that, and they're hiding this because they are afraid of what people will think about it. So a lot of my clients also that burn out also feel like you do, and you shouldn't. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Each person has a moment in life, and it's just not about the demands they gave you. The demand they gave you in the moments that they gave you. So it's not your responsibility. If you are burnt out, it's a workplace condition that should have been addressed by the workplace. It's not a weakness. This is a change of mindset, for sure. Okay, so I think I've run through all the questions. Did I? If you don't have any more questions, I just want, if you have any more questions, you can send me, as we still have some minutes, but I would love if you could answer this survey. Okay, the survey is important because it helped me create the first survey answers, helped me improve the second and the third webinars. And we are now, I want to thank again Pentalog for having invited me to this partnership and to give this wonderful webinar series. And your answers actually improved all the webinars. And I would love to know if you have a specific topic you would like me to talk about. I had a feedback from the first webinar that people told me that they had to, it just scratched the surface, that they wanted me to go deeper. So if you have something that you want me to go deeper, put it in the comments, send in the comments checks, or put it in the survey. So go back to the other webinars. The first about communication, the second was about time management, and you will have this presentation in your email arriving soon. And if you want to reach out to me, just get in touch, my LinkedIn, email, or check my website. Guys, I thank you, everyone. Okay, one more question, the Q&A. I saw one last minute question. Adriana Nava, how about the performance comparison the managers are the habits to doing personal evaluation? For example, how to handle it better? I don't know if I got it, Adriana, but do you mean that managers, they are comparing people in the evaluation, like you're not like John? Is it like that? You can answer that. Yes, okay. Thank you, Adriana. So that should not be done. Never. You should never do that. So if you are receiving, if your leader is doing that, I don't know how much power you have to change that, or how open this leader is to criticism, but he should receive some kind of feedback of not doing that. That each person has a different situation. This is not understanding the person in his as a whole, as an entire person. It's thinking that everyone is equal and everyone is starting with the same energy levels, and everyone has the same amount of responsibilities. So this is not a good place to go if you want to do that. I also advise the performance reviews to go with feed forward instead of feedback. I think it's very much more productive and positive for everyone. So anything else? So I think that's it. I hope you liked it. Please get in touch, add me as a connection on LinkedIn, and I'll see you on the next webinar. Bye-bye, everyone.